I will be recording the webinar, the Bidders Conference, which will be posted on our website, along with the PowerPoint that will accompany the presentation. In terms of technology, do ask that you mute yourself during the presentation, but we will be taking questions during the presentation as we're going along. So if you would like to type your questions in the chat box, then we will address your questions as we're going along, or if you want to hold them to the end, that's fine as well. So here from the Greater Lowell Workforce Board is myself, the Executive Director, Peter Farkas. Also, we have Katie Gentili, who just waved, who will be co-presenting with me, and then also Kathy Sturdivant. You want to say hi, Kathy? Wave there, Kathy, who will be helping me out when there are questions. So if you don't see your question right away, it's because of the technology. But first off, thank you everyone for coming. Just trying to get the technology all set up here. Okay. We expect this to be about an hour, potentially hour and a half, depending on how many questions you may have. Okay, so here's the agenda for today. I'm not going to go through everything on here right now, but we're going to go over the background of WIOA, the purpose of the RFP, who's eligible, how many funds are available for both the in-school RFP and the out-of-school RFP, the role of the Workforce Board, and then get into the eligibility, what we're looking for in programs, spend a little bit of time on the budget, review process, the time frame for submission, and as I said, we'll be answering questions as we go along. So the first is just a little bit of background on where the funding for the youth programming comes from. WIOA, acronym for the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, is federal funding from the U.S. Department of Labor. So this funding is available throughout the country. In Massachusetts, it comes to the state at the Department of Career Services, and then we receive an allocation in the Greater Lowell region to fund in-school and out-of-school programming throughout our region. So the programming, the third bullet point here, gets into kind of what we're looking for in programs. We're going to get into more detail on this later on, but it's again to provide programs to in-school youth and out-of-school youth, and with help with assistance for the GED, high set, high school diploma for in-school youth programming, and then eventually with the goal of the youth either obtaining a job or going on to higher education or some type of training. So again, this is kind of restating some of what I just talked about. One second. The goal is to fund two different types of programming. I can't stress that enough, both in-school and out-of-school youth programming. What we're looking for in programs is to conduct outreach and recruitment, case management, work experience, which we'll focus on later, case management, career pathway activities, and eventually leading to job placement and assistance either into post-secondary education or again, job placement. Oh, 1 second. So the purpose of the RFP, again, it's two different RFPs, which I want to make clear, and it's two different sets of funding. So the first is for in-school youth programs between the ages of 16 to 21 years of old, and they are currently enrolled in high school, secondary education. The second RFP is to fund out-of-school youth programs for youth between the ages of 16 to 24 at enrollment that are not enrolled in school or have left high school without their high school diploma, so high school dropouts. A bidder is allowed to apply to either in school, out of school, or both, but each bid will be evaluated just with the in-school programs or just with the out-of-school programs. So if you submit an in-school program, in-school bid, it's only going to be evaluated with the other in-school youth proposals. all out-of-school youth proposals will be evaluated with the out-of-school youth proposals. But a bidder could submit an in-school program and an out-of-school program. So we're looking for this is the Greater Lowell service delivery area. So we're looking for youth programming that serves youth that live in our service delivery area. So this is these other towns in our region. The map of the region can also be found. I want to make sure I reference the right page to you. Attachment A in both RFPs, the in-school and youth RFPs, which is page 18. So the reason we're showing this is, as I mentioned earlier, every workforce board throughout the state receives funding, WIOA youth funding, and we want to make sure that our WIOA youth funding is serving youth from our towns. This is just a list of who is eligible to submit a bid, eligible applicants. This list can also be found on page 4 of both RFPs. Not going to read through the list, but this is who is eligible to submit a bid. And again, it's on page 4 of both RFPs. Okay, so this is an important slide. So the funding, the Workforce Board puts out these RFPs every 2 years. The initial funding, which we'll talk about, will be for the first year funding, our fiscal year FY21, which starts July 1st, 2020, and goes through June 30th, 2021. So we're looking for year-round programming. By law through the U.S. Department of Labor, 75% of our allocation, our funding, has to go towards WIOA youth out-of-school youth program. That's by law. So we receive an allocation. At the minimum, we have to divvy that up with 75% going towards out-of-school youth funding. So based off of that, we don't have our FY21 allocations yet from the U.S. Department of Labor, but we're moving forward based off of our current year, FY20, which would be $60,000 available for in-school youth programming and $260,000 available for out-of-school youth programming. So this is an important slide. This is how much money is available when you submit your proposals. So this is for the region. It's highly unlikely we would fund one out-of-school youth program for $260,000. This is available for the whole region, and same for the in-school youth program, $60,000 for the entire region. Next, I'm going to just the role of the Workforce Board. So your contracts would be the Workforce Board is a department of the City of Lowell. Our role is to secure the providers through an RFP process, and then your contracts are with the Workforce Board / City of Lowell. When a program is funded, the program works directly with Kathy Sturdivant, who's on this meeting with us, to determine eligibility, help with intake, assessments. So we're in a way a partner with the programs to work on with who should be enrolled in the programs. So this includes testing for out-of-school youth programs on the math and reading. As I said, we work with your contract would be with us. We provide technical assistance one-on-one with providers, but also we have group vendor meetings, youth partner meetings, where we bring together all our funded providers to discuss best practices, what's working, what's not working. So those are usually twice a year. And again, we're working with our providers to ensure that we meet the performance metrics that are set by Department of Labor, which we'll discuss later on in the meeting. Again, each program we fund is working in coordination with the Workforce Board and with Kathy Sturdivant. Part of our role is oversight, so we will be conducting program monitoring at least once a year. Next, I'm going to hand it over to Katie Gentili, who's going to get into a little more detail on the eligibility, so who's eligible for both the in-school and out-of-school youth programs in terms of the youth, and the what we're looking for in terms of program elements.
Hi, everybody. I'm not going to get into too much detail about every line here, but please ask questions if you have them, and I'll answer the best I can. So out-of-school youth, first and foremost, they need to be legal to work in the United States, and you can look at all of the documents you can collect, refer back to the RFP, pages 4 to 6, and also attachment B. So citizenship work eligible, selective service compliant for males 18 and over, and for out-of-school youth, our target range is 16 to 24 years old at the time of enrollment. For barriers, this is really important. They have to be one of the following on the drop-down list you see, 1 through 6. Please note number 2, we've never used that to date because the age range only goes up to 16. And since the largest percentage of our clientele has been over 17 for out-of-school youth, doesn't mean you can't use it, it just is not a very common barrier. A little bit more just on this list, numbers 8 and 9 are the 2 areas of out-of-school youth that you need to prove income for. And you need to take a TABE test to prove that they are basic skills deficient, or you need to take another state recognized exam to prove ELL. And then for number 9, that is a category for anybody who really needs the assistance but doesn't fit into the top 8. And you could ask me questions about that later, because that documentation is a little more complicated, just to prove.
Let me just jump in. So Katie and I are in the same room right now. It's a little awkward. So the eligibility is definitely a little complicated to some degree. I just want to stress, as I was saying earlier, the Workforce Board and Kathy are here to help programs that are funded determine who are the eligible students or youth that you're working with, and you're not on your own in terms of that. You're muted.
All right. Hey, everybody. Okay. So in-school youth, the first 3, the top 2 are the same: U.S. citizenship or work eligible, selective service. The age group for in-school youth is 14 to 21. So I just want to be clear on this. You have to prove low income for all in-school youth. We make it easier to prove it, but just so you know, the barriers are the same as out-of-school youth, but yet everybody needs proof of low income. As you can see, number 8 also differs from out-of-school youth, where a young person going to high school can have failed the MCAS or 1 or more courses during the current or previous school year. I just want to make it known, though, only 5% of your new enrollments can use number 8 as a barrier, because we're really gearing it toward the harder to serve population.
Ask if they can hear you.
Can you guys hear me?
No.
You guys are echoing really badly because you're both off mute. So like we can hear her coming through somebody else's computer, it sounds like.
Let me mute
myself. All right, I'm gonna have
I'll
Peter
mute myself then, because that's maybe the.
Now try to talk, Katie.
All right, is that better?
So much better, yes.
Okay, should I do in-school youth again, or are we all good?
I didn't understand a single word you said because of the echo, but that's.
All right. Okay, so basically what I was trying to say is the major differences between in-school youth eligibility and out-of-school youth eligibility, the barriers are pretty much all the same, except for one, but in-school youth must be low income. There is, across the board, they need to be low income. And then I'm gonna have Peter go to the next slide. Number 8, the barrier for people who don't fall into numbers 1 through 7 are different for in-school youth versus out-of-school youth, where in-school youth can fall under the category of having failed MCAS or 1 or more courses during the previous or current school year. But more strict for in-school youth is only 5% of net new enrollments can fall under the category number 8. So is that clear to everybody? I forgot you're all on mute. All right, so it's okay, Pete. So for eligibility documentation, I'm really not going to get into this. You can refer to attachment B on the RFP, and Kathy and I are always here to help you with which documents you need to prove youth eligibility. Again, out of school youth is a little easier because their proof of barrier is all you need. Most don't need low income proof, but in school youth can be a little harder because you need to prove income. All right, I'm gonna have you all take a look at this for a minute. These were updated in January of 2020. So this is mostly for out-of-school youth who already have a high school diploma or all in-school youth. This is the income guideline. For in-school youth who live at home, that would be for the entire family's income. So if it's a mom and 2 children, you'd go to number 3 for $28,165. Again, Kathy and I will help anybody who needs assistance calculating these incomes. Yeah. All right, I do want to point out this slide real quick. The reason I put this in here for low income status is because there are a lot of ways you could prove somebody's low income without having to collect actual income. Homeless or runaway, somebody in foster care, somebody who's getting TAFDC, food stamps, or SSI. We do need the documentations, but this automatically qualifies them as low income. I really want to bring up the free or reduced lunch program. We could use Lowell High as an example. Lowell High, everybody gets free lunch. The student themselves have to qualify for free lunch under the Richard Russell School Lunch Act. If that's hard to obtain the documentation because everybody gets it, you can use the poverty threshold tract, which anybody who applies who lives in an area that where 25% of the population who lives there fits the poverty threshold, then they also qualify. That's probably the easiest way. And again, we'll walk you through it. All right. There's 14 elements that need to be offered in the region by all programs or have to be available. Let me take that back. But each program needs to offer 10 of them, 6 of them being mandatory. Yeah, I can't see it now. If you're looking to reference something from the RFP, it's page 10 and it's page 31, which is attachment D. For people on this on the Zoom now who are a current program, you'll know that Kathy and I talk about the 14 elements quite a bit. So if you want to take a look here, I'm not going to read every one. There are 6 mandatory. The first one is tutoring and study skills and instruction, which is obvious because most of our programs are leading toward a credential, whether it be a diploma, high set, or even skills training. You have to be able to get tutoring to reach your goal. The next mandatory one is work experience. I am going to take a quick minute on that. I just want everybody to be clear that this is a super important element because you can pay the students up to 100 hours for a paid work experience at the minimum wage. And it's so important because it can also let them see if it's something they'd be interested in where you place them. So if you place somebody at a medical facility, then they could decide if they'd want to go into a healthcare career pathway. Oh, see, I can't see it. Yeah, unmute yourself. You gotta unmute yourself. Okay.
So for the AWF, your question, is your question in regards to low income status?
Yes, Peter, it's Amy.
Oh, hi, Amy.
Hey.
Is that a yes?
Yeah, there was a slide, I think, prior to this in terms of eligibility that Katie noted you had to be in a census zone. I was asking if you guys already had those identified.
Yeah. Yep, 1 second.
Hey, Amy. The link goes right to mass.gov. So the link in the RFP works, and I can email it out to everybody. So what you really need is the address and the zip code. And when you type it in, it gives you, if they're actually in that zone, you print it, you provide it to us, and they're all set. Does that answer your question?
Yep, thank you.
Yep. Yeah, okay, so for this slide, everybody, see the 3 highlighted mandatory ones. Again, all students enrolled in your program, I feel like this is the best way to describe it. These are all wraparound services. So if somebody's in a high set program, there needs to be a concerted effort to make sure hours and days and times are being set aside for the students to attend a structured financial literacy component, a structured labor market component where they learn about where the jobs are, where their skills match the jobs. And for the third one, transition to post-secondary education. There needs to be financial aid, classroom activities. There needs to be, an introduction to pre-college testing or research on applicable occupational skills training they would want to go into. It's not a discussion. It should be a separate component set aside in addition to whatever credential they're going for to deliver all of these services. This is what I just went over. It's just all on one slide, and I just want to be clear that those 6 must be delivered on site at your program. You can bring in other people, but it has to happen at your program. 4 additional elements as well, you may pick them, and in your proposal, you want to identify the 4 other of the 14 you've picked to be delivered on site at your program. Yes, for both. Yes, for both. All right, and work experience, I'm not going to read through this whole slide, but so you know what this slide means. This is for the provider, the program provider. Take just a second to look through it. Work experience expenditures can be charged off for staff time working with the students to prepare or go to a work experience. I will, oh, sorry, yeah. So 20% of your overall contract, if you ask for 100,000, 20,000 has to go to work experience, and it can include everything on this chart, including youth wages. But again, I just want to really stress that when it's a work experience charge off, it has to take staff time developing the work experience, going to the work experience, speaking with the employer. It can't be a resume workshop that everybody would be attending anyways. I hope that makes sense.
So, can everyone hear me now? Trying to toggle. This isn't easy as I thought. For the work experience, again, this is mandated by federal law that 20% of the overall. So as I mentioned earlier, we need an allocation. 75% of that has to go to the school youth programs at a minimum. They've also said both in-school and out-of-school youth programming, 20% of budgets have to go towards work experience. So what Katie listed here was all the different activities, including staff time, that can go towards work experience. There's a misconception that it only has to be youth wages, where youth are working and we're paying for their time. Yes, that is an allowable cost, but there's a lot of different options that would qualify under work experience. So we wanted to break down all the different options, because when we talk a little later about your budget, we are making sure that you have in your budget 20% of your total request is work experience. So I wanted to make sure you're aware of all the different options you have to count as work experience. Your question, but I'm going to step off from this view. Annalise, would you like to ask your question, just because I'm having trouble seeing the chat box from the PowerPoint view?
Sure. So I was just wondering if transportation to work experience for our youth can count as an expenditure there.
So that wouldn't fall under work experience. You'd have to put that under support services.
Okay.
Right, okay. So the first slide I just showed you was what the program can charge in their budget for services. This screen is specifically for the students, what the Department of Labor considers an appropriate activity under work experience. Paid, non-paid internships, work experience. For instance, if you get somebody a 2-day internship, you may pay them wages for it. You do not have to pay them wages for it, but you can. Summer and year-round employment, I stress this enough. You can pay somebody. We strongly encourage you to pay students for summer employment for both in-school and out-of-school programming, because these are year-round programs. Summer is the best time to keep them engaged by paying them for summer work experience. OJTs, on-the-job trainings, would be an awesome way to get work experience, pre-apprenticeship, job shadows, company tours, a one-day tour. I'm not saying you have to pay them to go to the tour. You can, but it's really good experience. And then career panels and guest speakers that you either attend or bring into your program. Okay, so this is what the youth can do. The previous page is what your staff can be charged off to. Yeah, I'm gonna Peter go back for another minute. So basically your staff time is charged off to developing and attending what I just listed on the next page. This is gonna be Peter.
Okay, so next I just wanted to go over the performance measures. So what are we holding programs that we fund in terms of outcomes? So before I get to this slide, a lot of order here, I just wanted to show these are the federal WIOA youth performance measures for the local region. So what we're looking for is, so how to read these are youth that have exited your program. So not going to go into all the details of the ins and outs of these because they're a little complicated. They can be found on page 13 and 14 of the RFP. But for example, the first one, of youth that exit your program, 80% need to either be in a job, school, college, or some type of training, or the military 2 quarters after exit. So just 81%. So you had, say you had 10 youth that graduated from high school, or 10 youth that graduated from high school. 6 months from now, from the exit date, they need 8 out of 10, not between 81% of them, which is an odd number, have to be in college, working in the military. And then the second one is 73% is about between 9 and 12 months after that, they need to still be in. So the percentage drops a little bit. So these are the performance measures. I'm not going to go into all the details of it. You can read about it in the RFP. We hold all our programs to the same accountability. So each program we fund has the same goals. Those are regional goals, so we expect each program that we do fund to meet those measures. So again, we're not setting these goals locally. We have very little flexibility. They come from the U.S. Department of Labor down to the state, and these are the performance measures. So I just want, so the slide before is just getting into how it's divided. So like I said, it's all based off of exits. So no one enters those performance indicators measures until they are exited from your program. So what exited means is, for example, an in-school youth program, just as an example, someone comes in junior, senior year, once they graduate high school, that would be the credential one, which is the 4th one down. So they have their high school diploma. And then the goal is, are they either obtaining a job, unsubsidized job, or they go into college or some type of training. So that's just a hypothetical for that.
Hey, everybody, I'm going to do the IS test real quick. For current vendors, you know, this was new this year. This came through the state and the Department of Labor that they've reinstituted the individual services strategy. The major reason they did this, because they really want programs at the beginning to sit with each student and go over a plan, do an objective assessment, do a career assessment, do a skills assessment. Based on those assessments, they want this to be an active plan that stays with the kids throughout the program. That way there's goals that they can keep track of. of, and it really leads to what we'll be going into next, a career pathway. So what they're trying to get away from is just straight a high set or just help them to graduation. This is a year long, you know, once they leave, it's another year of follow-up. So they're looking for a plan from entry to exit to the year of follow-up, put them on a track to be able to earn a livable wage. So the ISS is a working document. We have it electronically in between Kathy and all of the programs. It's a working document until they finish the program all the way through follow-up. Again, it's in the RFP, it's attachment C or page 26. This page, you guys, is just some ideas of objective assessments. Kathy and I also have one in the works that we can send to you that you can ask the students these questions, but you really do need to see where their academic skill levels are. What are their job readiness skills? What do they need? Where are their strengths and assets? And additionally, for assessments, I'm going to go over it for just a minute. All out-of-school youth, all have to complete a TABE test for reading and math. It's versions 11 and 12. As we get further in funded programs, we could talk about the TABE test. This will be a real quick slide. So the career pathway, we're just trying to describe to you what we're looking for. We want our students to be, you know, exposed to as many careers as they can so they can make a choice, make a plan, and head toward a goal that is outside of just their educational achievement of a high set or a diploma. Go ahead. Career pathways and priority industries. This is a list of the board's priority industries, which clearly we're very interested if you could bring in speakers or have students attend tours or do work experience placements at companies that are in these 5 industries. Specifically the top 3, advanced manufacturing, IT, and healthcare and social services. And with what's going on, healthcare is going to be an even bigger industry.
So just to add to that, and Katie did a good job explaining that, these 5 are in our local strategic plan. The top 3 are in the Northeast Regional Blueprint, which also encompasses the Merrimack Valley and North Shore workforce regions. Another why this is important is if you're an out-of-school youth program that's thinking of offering occupational skills credential, obviously we want youth being trained in careers and occupations where there are jobs. So these 5 industries, not exclusively, for sure there are other industries where there are jobs available, but these are the 5 that we're focused on. One, because there are jobs, there's predicted to be jobs, and they're good paying jobs with career pathways. Okay, so next I just want to go over the budget a little bit. So I'm going to try to bring up the Excel documents. Do you have a question? Okay, can everyone see the Excel spreadsheet? I can't see anybody. Katie, you see it?
I can see it.
All right. So this is attachment S, which is the Excel spreadsheet. It's the only one that is Excel. It is formatted for people to fill out in the yellow areas. So anything that is not yellow, you should not touch. So for example, column G in white, those are all formulas. So please do not adjust those at all. So what you're looking at here is, as we mentioned earlier, 20% of your budget, 20% of your overall budget needs to go to work experience. So we have broken up your total budget into 3 worksheets. The first one is just your general program budget to operate your program, not including work experience. So, you know, staff that will be working on the grant, on your program, fringe list, support services, supplies, communication, general typical budget. And then on the second tab is your work experience. So this would be that minimum 20% of your overall budget that would go towards work experience. So for example, under staff positions, if you have someone that is helping to develop job shadows, which would count as work experience, this is how many hours that person would be working towards that, or developing internships. So again, this must be at least 20% of your overall budget, and this is strictly work experience. So it's going to look it's the exact same as the program budget sheet, but just the tab is right, it says work experience on the tab. And then on the third spreadsheet is the overall. So you won't even touch this because this is all carrying over formulas from the previous two worksheets. So we'll be able to tell when you're submitted to make sure that you're at the 20%. I'll stop there, see if anybody has questions on these spreadsheets or anything related to the budget. So this is what the spreadsheet was attachment S. As I was saying, tab 1 is the program budget, tab 2 is the work experience, and then tab 3 summarizes everything from the previous two worksheets. In addition, I want to also make note of attachment T and attachment U in the RFP. And that's, again, it's the same attachment in the in-school youth program RFP in the out-of-school youth program. So when we reference attachments in pages, they do all line up in each of the RFPs. So attachment T is the program budget narrative, and then attachment U would go towards the work experience budget narrative. So attachment T towards tab 1 on the spreadsheet, and then attachment U towards tab 2. Okay, so there are 2 separate proposals that need to be submitted and will be reviewed separately. So the program one, which is what the majority of this presentation was on, and then the price proposal. Please make sure that you are meeting the minimum qualifying criteria, which is on attachment J, which is the checklist, to make sure that you are submitting every document that needs to be submitted for your proposal to be valid. Also, just make sure that all attachments are signed and completed, no different than any other proposal. For your program proposal, we would like 1 original and 8 copies. And for your price proposal, 1 original and 2 copies. And then also we are requesting an electronic copy is submitted to Kathy Sturdivant. Her email is in the RFP. All this information I just went over is all listed in the RFP. So this is a timeline, obviously. So the RFP were released on April 20th. We are at the bidders conference today. The deadline for submitting written questions will be, it's 5 o'clock on May 14th. It's 5 o'clock p.m. on May 14th. All Q&A and answers to submitted questions, including from today, will be uploaded on the Workforce Board's website, which I'll show you. I'll bring up the website so everyone knows where it is on the website. Proposals, both the price and program, are due by 11 o'clock on Friday, May 22nd, 11 a.m. And then it's anticipated contracts will start July 1st, 2020. So this timeline is on the front page of the RFP and is listed throughout in the RFP.
Yeah, can I ask a question, Peter? Heather.
Yep, go ahead.
When do you anticipate letting vendors know of the award?
Yep, it's a good question. So it will be late June. So it's going to be a late turnaround. Probably June 26th is the date we're looking at. So that's a good question, Alex.
Thank you.
So this is just the review process that will So all the proposals will be scored on this 100 point, and you can read through it. It will be, all proposals will be reviewed by Greater Lowell Workforce Board members and independent reviewers, which will be, well, obviously no conflicts of interest. So this is just how the criteria in terms of evaluating proposals. I do want to mention, back to this and in terms of the Q&A, it is bidder's responsibility to check the website for updates. So when people are submitting questions, we'll be updating the website, but it is your responsibility to go to the website to check for updates in terms of the Q&A.
Peter, it's Maria. Can I ask a question, please?
Sure.
Okay, so the world, as I guess as we know it, has changed. And for example, students getting a high set, as of today, there are no dates for high set exams. There's a possibility that students might not be able to go to school starting in September, that we're gonna have to change things to online or remote learning. You know, how are we, I mean, what can we do, I guess, in a budget that would look at those things? Because it's very difficult to project something that we have no idea what it's going to look like.
So can you just your question is, can you just restate your question?
Yeah, so again, in order to meet our numbers, for example, I will not meet my numbers for this year. There's no testing schedule as of now. So the students that we were working with, hoping that by June 30th, they would have completed their high set, they're not. So I'm assuming we would carry those students, but how are proposals going to be looked at when, again, we're not able to do a lot of the things that we would normally be doing?
Yeah, so couple questions there, right? So for currently funded programs, if you are refunded for FY21, yeah, you would be carrying in people. And I mean, obviously this is a very unique and fluid situation. So we would deal with that if a program is refunded on a one-to-one basis in terms of how that would look in terms of carry-ins. In terms of the workforce board, this isn't unique to the WIOA youth programs. I mean, we're dealing with this with all our programs. So there obviously will be flexibility in terms of that. The testing is what it is. I mean, and we understand that. So it's not like we're saying you have to do something that's impossible to be done at this time. Does that answer your question, Maria? Somewhat.
I guess yes and no. So I know I had sent a couple of questions. For example, we still have a number of students that have no access to online learning. So, you know, I had sent you a question, you know, can we use some of that funding that we might have been using for internships to purchase a computer? I think, again, the way that we have done things, you know, being in a classroom, even if the college opens for September, we're not going to be able to put the number of students in a classroom that we normally did. So I guess I'm just trying to figure out what other things can we look at or can be done to make adjustments, or what is acceptable.
Yeah. So if you think your program model will change to more remote learning, build that into your proposal. I mean, in terms of what you're charging something toward, it just has to make sure, for example, if you're buying computers and charging that to work experience, you have to justify, well, how is that being charged to work experience? So it'd have to be specific, like this is I mean, it's all hypothetical, but if you're thinking your model is going to change, and then you could put more resources towards remote learning, that's fine. I mean, it's a separate conversation for programs for this current year in terms of moving money around, but for going forward, you should, you know, look at how the program may be structured going forward in the fall.
Okay.
To piggyback on that question, should we be looking at sort of contingency plans? Because ideally we will be working from the classroom and employing students and testing students. But should we be looking at contingency plans? So if testing is not available for half of, FY21, should we be planning for that within the application?
It's a good question. I would say yes. Let me get back to you on that. We'll post something on that. Are you saying, Annalise, like building in, like if everything there is testing by September, this is what we'll do, and then option B is if there isn't, this is what we'll do into your proposal?
Sure. So in a way, it may be writing a proposal where in the classroom, this is what things would look like. But if our classroom is not able to reopen, remote learning may look like this.
That would, yeah, you could do it that way. And keep in mind, if you are funded and then say option A isn't working now and you need to move to option B, we can do budget modification, budget mods to move stuff around that would go towards more remote, if that's the way it ends up going. So that would be fine to do it like that.
Do you have any insight as to employment and what that might look like? Because employers are hopefully going to be reopening this summer to employ individuals that already have jobs. But in terms of employing, young folks and work experience pieces, I think that's going to be challenging, especially early on in this upcoming fiscal year.
I wish I knew the answer to that. I mean, who knows, right? So are you related to the work experience? And is that what, Annalise, you're referring to? Like, or
Yeah,
just overall
specifically around
outcomes?
I think specifically around work experience, and then eventually we'll be looking at outcomes, but hopefully that won't be as, we'll be further down the line.
Yeah, it's definitely things that will change. I mean, I can't tell you exactly what the economy will look like in 2-3 months. But for example, you could look into like virtual job shadows. If there's anything in terms of that can be done remotely, that would count towards work experience, that could be an option. In terms of the overall economy and people getting jobs for outcomes, yeah, I mean, there's talk of like a waiver from Department of Labor for this current year that hasn't been granted because everything just radically, the world changed within a month. So to answer your question, I don't know where there will be jobs, but there is flexibility. As of now, the goals that we went over that are in the RFP, those are going to be our current goals for FY21. But Department of Labor obviously is aware of what's going on in that. Things have changed radically and there potentially could be requests for waivers. Now, we can't ask for a waiver locally. It would have to be the state doing it on the state's behalf for all the local areas. But that could be something that does happen.
Great, thank you.
So that wrapped up the PowerPoint. So I just want to open it up for any other questions. Actually, before they do that, I'll just show everyone the website so everyone is aware of where all these documents will be uploaded. You can see it, right? So on our website, currently, you could go through, if you scroll down, you can through the RFP announcement. This will link. If it goes, so this will link to, well, all the documents are currently here, the RFP documents, but the resource page, which is here, is our main hub for where everything will be updated, including like today's. So there's this timeline. Bidders conference information will be uploaded later today, tomorrow, in terms of the PowerPoint and the actual Zoom meeting. and then updates and Q&A will be posted here. So as I mentioned earlier, we do ask that you do check this regularly. Also on top, if you look at the top row here, the direct way to connect to this page is under Youth, and then the drop down FY21 WIOA Youth RFP. So if you go, let me show you. So again, this is our home page. Up here, Youth, you see the drop down, and then the last one here, this will bring you to that page. And this is where everything will be posted. And I'm back. Any other questions?
Yeah, Peter, hi, it's Amy again. Do you
I
do you guys have documentation or resources where we can see what has historically been funded and at what level?
Yeah, we can post that.
Just
So
so
you-
you're trying to get a sense of whether this year's allocation is less than prior years, more than, and how many programs you funded both in the in-school and out-of-school youth programming.
Yep, we can post that.
Thank you.
So the last maybe 4 years, or how
Sure.
much? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you guys haven't gotten your allocation yet, have you?
No.
Yeah.
So
I know
it's
that-
based in it. We're basing it off of last year, 2 years ago, or last year's.
Okay.
I should have mentioned this. Pretty confident we'll have that amount of money, around that amount of money with carrying.
Yeah, I mean, the Department of Labor has released the state allocation, so you can see there was a reduction.
Yeah, but we internally we may have some carrying money to probably
Okay.
make it whole. I should mention, so we do fund we fund programs. We do an RFP every 2 years. This is for the first year. The funding you see is for year one, and then assuming we have received funding for the next year around the same level, we refund programs assuming they are meeting performance measures, meaning they are enrolling people, are getting the outcomes. So that's the assumption. So that's why it says it's a 2-year RFP. The money you're seeing, this the 60,000 for in-school youth and the 260,000 for out-of-school youth are just for year one. And then year two, we hope we have at least that the same amount of money, if not more. If that was the case where we did see an uptick in money next year, FY22, we sometimes would go to another program and say, hey, we have some extra money. Can you serve a couple more youth? And we'll give you that. So it's a conversation with providers and ourselves. But just want to stress the money is just for the first year from July through June.
And just as an aside question, has there been discussion from the Department of Labor as to whether or not they're going to be rolling out additional support?
Support meaning funding?
Yeah.
Loose discussions. So, I mean, there may be some money coming into the workforce world through, another one of those CARES step, I guess, 3 or 4, which could be some youth money. But it's so preliminary that it's hard to say what it would actually be used for. Again, but it could also be, I mean, if we do receive money, it would also be for, adult dislocated.
Adult population.
Yeah.
Okay. And
But
dislocated
potentially
workers.
youth as well. I mean, it could be, during the recession when we ran a big summer jobs program.
Right.
But I wouldn't be surprised if we do see some youth money. It just not necessarily would be going to the WIOA youth providers.
Okay. I just wanted to know if there had been any, and it's going to be so late to the game anyway.
Yeah, I mean, there has been, because of the initial CARES money, hasn't really included money directly to career centers or workforce boards. It's been obviously more going to the people directly that are on unemployment and to small businesses. But we do believe the next step, which could be not till, you know, the summer or fall, there will be money coming into the workforce world directly. So Maria just asked, it's the same as a question in the chat box. Is it still the same as prior years, out of school youth not eligible for summer program? Maria, can you expand on that?
Yeah,
You
so
doing
I was looking
YouthWorks?
at the summer jobs program. So they're not correct? That out-of-school
That's-
youth in a program would not be eligible through your summer job programs, correct?
I mean, that's a separate funding source. Heather, you want to jump in there? And so this RFP is from the Federal Department of Labor. That's a separate funding source, which is state money, YouthWorks.
Yeah, so the programs are different, and the ages are different. So the summer program only goes to age 21. You know, anyone within the age range is welcome to apply, but it is just because you're involved in another program doesn't necessarily mean that you get a spot in it. It's totally separate funding, and so they're not coordinated at all. So we don't put our WIOA youth into the summer program, for instance, automatically. If they want to apply as a separate part, but we run our own work experience programs throughout the year for our WIOA youth that are totally separate.
Yeah, so Maria, your youth can apply for the YouthWorks program. You just shouldn't like build it into your budget that they're going to be doing YouthWorks, because of this, how they're saying they're totally separate funding sources.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Okay.
Welcome.
So Amy, what role is the Career Center? What is the role of the Career Center in recruitment of component of eligible youth? So not too much. One of the current, so the Workforce Board, one of our current providers that is funded is the Career Center. So they're recruiting internally for their own program. One of the main responsibilities of the program, each program that we do fund, is that kind of you're responsible for your internal recruitment. If it's a specific program, they would like some assistance with it, the Career Center. We could potentially work something out, but they would have a small role in the overall recruitment of your participants. Amy, does that help with does that answer your question?
I'm sorry, Peter, I had to unmute. Yeah, it answers my question. I just didn't know if there was any kind of a relationship there.
In terms of the Career Center helping define participants for the youth programming?
Yeah, I understood that they're currently running one of the program operators, so I can see that, but I just didn't know if you guys were encouraging and or requiring some pipeline relationship. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, it's something we could talk, but I mean, it's something we could figure out something, but in general, it is the program's responsibility for recruitment.
Amy, well, everybody, I just also wanted to stress that we strongly promote the fact that all programs introduce their students to all of the services at the Career Center. They should be coming over there. They could request a tour that we would provide. They could do all of the workshops. And we as the board, Kathy and I, promote all of your programs regularly. If we have a student walk in, or we know the Career Center as youth, we promote every program. We have them all listed on our website, and we let them choose which would be most appropriate for them and then back refer them over to you. But again, it is a big thing that they should all be utilizing. We have really good webinars now that we're going back to something Maria brought up earlier. We have great webinars, And the teachers are awesome. So when you're thinking about virtual services, they're really, really good.
So that's once they're enrolled in the program. Yeah, we definitely want every youth, whether it's an in-school program or an out-of-school youth program, to become familiar with the Career Center in terms of the services that are available to anyone that's looking for a job. Any other questions? So as we, if there's no more questions, as we wrap up, just want to note on page 7 of the RFP, all questions should be emailed to, it's on page 7, info@masshighergradelowell.com. So as I mentioned, we'll be taking questions up until May 4th, 5 o'clock and May 14th, and we will be updating on the Q&A on the website as questions do come in. So the questions from today we'll add to we'll put something up, and then it'll be rolling as questions do come in. So before we do wrap up, are there any last questions before we go? I see a lot of excited people.
I miss you all. I hope everybody's healthy.
Siobhan, I also miss you, and it was weird. You were so quiet.
I decided I should be quiet on my Zoom calls. Did you see my big dog jump up though? Little moose.
I want him.
He wanted to go outside.
Okay, so we'll with no more questions, we'll wrap up. Thank you everyone for attending. As I said, try to upload the actual meeting today on the website along with the PowerPoint, and then we'll get the Q&A going on the website as well. So thank you very much for attending, and hope everyone's obviously stays safe, and talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.
Peter. Bye.